Welcome to the Winston Gilchrist experience. What you just saw is the church I go to every Sunday. And where I, as a child, this is my whole identification with religion and Jesus and the whole God consciousness comes from this experience of being in Convent Avenue Baptist Church. I started in convent when I was, 2 years old and on my mother's knee. And I remember it vividly. I just remember that whole spiritual experience when I was a child. I was baptized there the first time in 1952 at 11. All right, so that early beginnings of the Baptist Church in the 40s. I started going there on my mother's knee in 1943. And my family owned a tailor shop across the street from there, from where I was shooting. So the whole neighborhood was my early beginnings. And now, almost 60, I'm going back to church and felt that whole energy, that spirituality that we're talking about. And, all right, welcome to the show, Miss Santipriya.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Okay. Tell me about your early beginnings in religion.
Well, I was raised in Berkeley, California, born in Oakland. I went to a Baptist church there, and...
Does this sound familiar to you?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it was called Progressive Baptist Church. It was located in Berkeley off of Adeline, as I remember. And I was given a choice. Either I could join the usher board or I could join the choir. And so I joined the choir and called myself singing. It was, I don't regret the experience. It put in place all of the values that I know that I now have. And I think that's very, very important, that background. And I remember being baptized. I was disappointed because the associate pastor baptized me, not the other one was away, the main Reverend Stovall, who, of course, now is long since deceased. And I took advantage of the fact that my parents were divorced when I was 12 to basically sneak out of church, and I have not really returned. Now I go to visit, and I go if invited, but I don't go to stay. I think I've become very, in my case, somewhat chagrined at some of the things that go on in churches.
All the devil is alive and well in the church.
This we know.
But this whole beginning, it's not unique to my life or your life, but that's the basics of us as a people, as black people here in America.
It's true.
That's always been our comfort zone. I can imagine in the 40s, then you didn't have television. I remember you got one of the first televisions in, when was that, 48?
I recall a TV too.
48.
Yes.
I think. About 48. But we're talking about the earlier, and even earlier than that, the only good music you could find was in church. Because I remember going to communion once a month at night. We used to go to church, or maybe even more than once a month.
Night service you went to?
Yeah, night service.
Night service.
The night service was, I remember when I was real young, all this noise and people shouting and people going off. And I was always in awe of all this. And it was amazing. I remember climbing the stairs of Convent Avenue Baptist Church as a baby and how high the stairs were. And I remember climbing up the stairs and looking up to this big church and all this noise and all this stuff. And that was my real beginnings. And I remember laughing when I was in the service in 1960. I went back. I was joining the Marine Corps. I went back and I looked at the steps. By this time, I'm 6'2".
Yes.
And I looked at the steps. Oh, it's not so big. I mean, this is. And all that early beginnings came out of me. I mean, it was like I was in the Corps. I was a grown man, and those were childish things to me.
Yes.
But I roamed the planet for like 40 years before I went back to church.
Really?
And then when I went back to church, I got that same feeling when I was a kid. I was coming back home. And it was an awesome experience.
Yes.
So I took my camera and then I caught the spirit in the camera.
Yes. Yes.
And I've been videotaping since.
Yes.
I thought that was, God had called me to videotape spiritual energy in the church and spread. That's my way of testifying
Yes.
or spreading God's word.
Yes. Yes.
And this, I think, is a calling for all of us, especially as black people, because there's something very important I think we need to understand, our spiritual level. And it's a whole idea of what you have in your mind mentally. And we'll get to the Kybalion and this all this principles. This is what I'm leading up to.
Yes. Yes.
All right, about the whole spiritual nature of the Kybalion. And we have a book here. I don't know if we can get it on camera. We'll take it on this one here. This is the Kybalion as Hermetic philosophy. We're talking about the ancient Egyptians. Taking you back a couple of years.
Tell me about it.
We're talking about Hermetic philosophy, about Hermes Trismegistus, who was considered a god.
A contemporary of Abraham, supposedly.
But
it says.
Supposedly taught Abraham.
It taught Abraham, yes.
Now, I might mention that all these are black people.
Yes.
Let's make a note of this.
Yes.
That all these people in the Bible are people of color. Can we use that term?
Yes.
People of color?
Yes.
At least they had a suntan. Now, all our learned scholars can testify to this. But what we've been delusioned and, bamboozled and lied to over the centuries about our heritage and our complexion and what we're all about. That inferiority complex that the powers to be have tried to place us in, the Willie Lynch theory, the self-hatred that we as a people bring to ourselves and people around us that we love and care about. And this is our problem. It's not the European problem. It's our problem, our personal problem, how we think mentally. Now, one of the main principles of the Kybalion, this Hermetic philosophy preached by Hermes Trismegistus in year 3200 BC.
At least.
So we're talking about 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago, I believe the Europeans were still in the caves. Okay? Learned scholars out there who can testify to that. Now, I think Hermes Trismegistus, here are the 7 principles of the Kybalion. Now, let me briefly give them to you. The 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based are as follows. The principle of mentalism. What does that mean? The principle of mentalism. Let's go over that one quickly. The all is mind. The universe is mental. The Kybalion. This principle embodies the truth that all is mind. It explains the all, which is a substantial reality underlying all the outward manifestation and appearances which we know under the terms of the material universe. In other words, God, the all, is mental. This is a mental thought in our mind. This whole reality, what we see as the material universe, is a mental thought. We're a twinkle in the eyes of God. That's an enormous thought, to think that, well, we all know we create our own worlds.
True.
Now give us your credentials and tell us people who you are.
Well, I'm a medical psychologist by training, educated at Stanford, Harvard Medical School, and New York University.
Okay.
And I teach presently college.
And here we're talking about Baptist churches.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
Well, it's all a part of the spirituality that we inherit as a people. So through all this learned process, it all comes back to you are what you think you are.
Well, let me just say this. When you say mind is all, I think that what has happened, let's say in Western psychology, they have taken the mind true to be, how can I say, in and of itself, complete and answerable to nothing else. And the problem with Western psychology is that it lacks variation, it lacks acknowledgement that there are other types and other kinds of so-called mind that exist. That's the problem. So it's like a type of co-optation. That's how I view it, very much so.
Do you mean the European standard?
Yeah, in terms of the European, what they would call mind versus what's in the Kybalion. And I would say also that they're very arrogant with it. In other words, their mind, or their collective mind, that is the standard, and you have to measure up to that. And there can be no room for such things as culture, not as you and I know it. No.
Well, it comes out of the German ideals.
Thank you so much. It is. That's it. It is based on a German model. Absolutely, absolutely. In which it's a question of compartmentalizing all of creation. And other people too, but in the sense of being inferior and superior, that's where they went with it. And I would say too that the French philosopher René Descartes had something to do with that also.
Okay.
With the little pigeonholes, like compartmentalization,
right.
that sort of energy, and it has in terms of us, it has proved to be very constrictive and oppressive.
In other words, it's regimentation.
Extremely.
A lack of spirit.
I'll take it further, meaning that nothing else has worth or value, and that is why we feel the way we feel.
Do they believe in God? Most of them?
They claim to.
Well, how do they interpret that spirit?
Well, it's a great question. I don't understand, frankly, how they can celebrate Christmas and live with themselves, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
January 1st, it's business as usual.
Okay.
It's that sort of thing. In other words,
well, they've commercialized Christmas. That's why they do it for money.
That's true, but everything is in its place. Christmas is, this is my take, Christmas is for some sort of thankfulness. Christmas is for some sort of change of heart, even.
Okay.
Change is for, Christmas is for the possibility of new beginnings.
Okay.
That's the spirit, but, January 1st, it's business as usual.
Well, what I'm trying to get to is that the Hermetic philosophy is more closer to our nature.
That's true.
To we as a people.
That's true.
And I'm trying to dismiss the European interpretation of what spirit is.
Yes.
Because I think we need to go back to our roots. And I find that Africa is our roots. And the ancient Egyptians are the original people on the planet.
That's true.
We can date them back to 50,000 BC.
True. We are but a thought. Mind first, then you get sound, then you get the creation.
Okay.
You can't have really a creation without sound, which then, of course, forms matter. That's how it goes. That's even in the Egyptian, on the edifices that they have in Egypt, so I understand.
Right. Let's go to the second principle, which is the principle of correspondence.
Yes.
Now, briefly describe the principle of correspondence is explained as above, so below. As below, so above, the Kybalion. Now, this meaning, as it is above in the heavens or the universe, you have a corresponding energy which is down here with us.
True. On
this level or this plane.
True. I would hope that it would mean that we would have to rise or to raise ourselves to a higher level of how we operate, how we function in terms of how we treat each other. When it says so below, as above. But again, in terms of what the Europeans have done with it, again, it's hierarchical. That's the problem with it that I have with it.
This shows more of an equality, doesn't it?
Yes, I would think so.
So the people on top are just as good as the people below.
Worthy.
Worthy as.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Oh, this seems more like in God's liking anyway.
Yes,
right?
In God's image, absolutely. Then you should act accordingly. That's what I think.
What do you think, what is church to people today, to our youth, as the opening piece? I mean, I just express how I personally deal with it. And it was our early beginnings. Do you think that's what we lost, that early teachings of God? Which I think is essential to our existence?
I'm sorry to sigh. The youth are not really in church in the way that they were. It is not an insistence by the parents.
Okay.
You know, even if you fell away later, at least you know that you had it. You know that you could always have some sort of root beginnings to return to.
Right.
It's not in place. I mean, the level of degradation is unbelievable. Posing and hiding is, I hate to trash it, but it's hip hop.
Okay.
You know, I tried to like support my students, for instance, the other night, and I went to a little mini concert. I could sit through 4 hip hop groups and I had to leave. You know, I just can't do with the level of profanity. It takes us nowhere. This is not our original state. This is something that was designed and created. It took 500, 800 years to create that you would want to do that for yourself and make it public. You know, so I have serious issues with it, and I'm not even suggesting that the church is the only way. I'm just saying that.
Okay.
But however, it's a starting point.
Okay.
You know, in terms of just the niceties. You know, your manners, how you look, how you dress. You know, yes sir, no ma'am, thank you. I mean, just the basics. And I don't even common courtesies. I don't even think. I know just from looking at some of my students, those things that you and I take for granted, it is not even in place. It's not even in place. So I have to not only teach psychology, I have to then teach some manners and crunch down on them, you know.
Explain to us what psychology is.
I have no idea. Been teaching it for a decade. I wish I knew.
Is that the confusion between Freud and Jung and all those German philosopher and Carl Jung?
Well, I was being half flipped, but actually psychology is supposedly the study of human behavior.
Okay.
That's a nice, short, concise
Okay.
definition.
Which is important for all of us to understand.
This is true. It's a study of behavior, but there's so much involved, like the chemistry of it, what we would call cognition. That is how you process what you're seeing.
Right.
That too.
Exactly.
That too.
Exactly.
There's a lot to it. Then there's the early childhood piece. If things went askew, you know, and how are you now as an adult? There's a lot of sub-pieces to what you say when you say psychology. Then there's a whole thing about Western psychology versus the other, and to show you the level of arrogance. So Western psychology is only 100 years old, plus so-called multicultural psychology is only 20 years old. So we are truly, when you say people of color, truly an afterthought in terms of psychology as it is now studied. Now you can get all kinds of wonderful textbooks. Everybody's in there, even people, especially here in the New York area, people from Poland, of course, Puerto Ricans, many other people are in these textbooks. And there's like many different so-called ethnic groups, and you can get them all in one textbook now as a specialized area. But still, it's only 20 years old as a science. That's the point.
Well, now, the ancient Egyptians had a psychology called, what was it? Mysticism? Or
back to the Kybalion.
I think it was a Kybalion. All right, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. As below, so above. Now, the third principle is the principle of vibration.
Yes.
Everything, you know, like I'm feeling your vibes, which everybody says. Everybody understands this principle. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. This chair is vibrating.
Everything.
These books are vibrating. Everything is vibrating. Everything is in motion.
True.
Everything moves. Everything gives off energy. Now, this is a very important part of the Hermetic philosophy, to understand your vibrations, how the camera vibrates, how I project to the people out on the tube. I talk about this all the time, about vibrating a positive love energy, and they can read it and feel it.
True.
And this is what a lot of people don't even recognize about themselves. We're going to go a whole hour on this one, okay? We have to go an hour on this one. All right? I don't know what's going on, but let's continue.
Yes.
I'm getting some remarks from my crew here.
Sorry.
All right. Now, what was I saying? I was talking about vibrations and picking up energy.
Yes.
Now, this is very important in psychology.
Yes, it is.
Because you're studying human behavior. And one of the ways to study human behavior is how people vibrate and what kind of energies they give off. So this is one of the basic principles that everybody understands, but don't understand what they're looking at. Now, how do you teach this to your kids?
I'm so glad that you asked me that. Since, I teach clinical psychology, which means that I have to now train the next generation of clinicians. Basically, I tell them that there's a lot that's hidden in nonverbal behavior, and there's a lot that people leave out in terms of vibration. And you can catch people in discrepancies in terms of what they say. Based on the,
look like.
But when you say vibration, I can give you also another classic. Basically, I used to, since I am somewhat what we call, I guess you would call me I shouldn't say this, a sensitive, meaning very sensitive to some people. For instance,
psychic?
I am, yes.
Okay.
For instance, I would in other words, I would pass someone who was homeless on the street, and I can still feel it when I'm on the train when somebody gets on their energy. And I used to be more sensitive in the past than I am now, and I'm glad that I'm sort of, as they say, shut down, because it would just be a lot to bear. Basically, I can feel that person's aura intersect with mine, and then I can feel the person finally disconnect when they're down at the other end of the block and I'm in the opposite direction. But I mean, that kind of thing, and it's a feeling of great oppression. I feel it. I feel that pain very much so.
You can pick up the vibration.
Oh yes, absolutely. Or that there's some sort of disturbance. I feel it. Yes.
Well, they teach you in the Kybalion in order to combat that. Because if you pick up too much, I mean that can
That's true.
take away from you.
Yes.
So you have to build up a shield in order to
I agree.
to bounce it back to them.
No,
like putting up a
yes, you're absolutely right.
like putting up the hand, and the vibration come right back at them.
That is not in the psych textbooks. That's something that I have to tell my students. I have to tell them that they have to wear some kind of shield and ground themselves.
Exactly.
Especially if they're going to see, let's say, schizophrenic patients,
Right.
who are really
Right.
or psychotic patients,
Right.
but they don't tell you that in graduate school. They don't tell you that. It's something that I have to tell them, and I do.
But you can learn that from the streets.
Well, but I also give them an out that maybe if it's not for them, they should consider another profession and or see patients who are less ill. I definitely tell them that, without a doubt, without a doubt. Without a doubt, because it is too much. And a person who's, let's say, only 20 or 25 at the time can be flooded with other people's material and mind stuff, as I call it, mind stuff.
Yeah.
It's a bit much.
Well, if the universe is mental,
but they don't know it yet. They're only 20 and 25. The students don't really understand
well, then
that
that's
yet.
why they should learn something about the Kybalion,
Yes.
these 7 principles. That the universe is mental,
Yes.
It is as above as below,
Yes.
and then everything vibrates. We've just gone through 3 of them, and we've solved a lot of the psychological problems right there if you understand those principles. True?
Perhaps.
Okay, let's go on. Oh, this is great. I don't seldom get to talk about this, and this is a book I read all the way back in the early 70s.
Yes.
I got it from Weiser's bookstore.
Weisers, the old Weisers. Yes, I miss it.
The principle of polarity. And that was that everything has a pole.
Yes.
What was it, actually? Vibrations. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradox may be reconciled.
I would say out of all of the principles of the Kybalion, that's the most difficult for us as a people. That particular one.
As a people.
I would say so. Because you say truth versus half-truths. I mean, what is the truth? I mean, really, you can argue about that all day long. And even when you supply further, let's say, historical information, there's still stuff that's missing. Because you're not right on the scene, and maybe the people that you're studying, maybe they have not written these things down, so a lot of it gets
But doesn't it
transmitted.
explain all the lies we've been told all these years?
Oh yes, that's true. It's true.
Well,
Definitely.
Well, let's cut this short for now, and we'll continue let's take a break real quick, and we'll come back at you.
What are
All
they
right?
yakking about? What's wrong? What are they yakking about?
Thank you.
Having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, doth not leave the 99 in the wilderness, and go after that which is lost until he finds it. Now I want to talk just for a moment or two on this theme, acting like the shepherd. Acting like the shepherd. Jesus, in this simple parable, makes one of the most forthright statements that defines his mission in the world. He was in the company of Pharisees and scribes who criticized him. And their criticism was quite distinct. They said, this man makes a habit of hanging out with sinners and social outcasts. Why were they so scathing in their criticism of Jesus? The Pharisees belonged to that segment of Jews who placed enormous emphasis on...
Now, that short break was about, that's my pastor on Sundays. I get to enjoy this man has saved my life, literally. I've been fortunate enough to be able to take the tapes home and listen to it in a quiet hour. And when I was meditative periods, like between 4 and 6, when I can really pick up the vibration, when the vibrations are really clear. And a lot of the things that he says is very, apropos. He talks about us as a people. And one of the few places that you can hear that the people in the Bible are black, and that they were of color, and that Moses and Abraham and all these other people that we've heard about over the years are people like you and I. And this is part of the psychology of the man who writes our history.
Disinheritance.
Disinheritance. And how we've been I'll use it again, bamboozled. I love that word. Because we have been snowed, given a snow job, fed lies and all sorts of things, bad vibrations. And yet we still cling to our spiritual energy, that Christ-like feeling. Those people that don't believe in Christ, there's a principle to lay it. Because Christ went out to the people that were disenchanted. If Christ were to come back today, there's no doubt in my mind he'd probably be from Harlem and look something like me. So, with that thought, that was our quick break, just because we had a few technical problems. Now we're back at you. And we were talking about the Kybalion and vibrations. And you imagine the kind of vibrations Jesus gave off, and hanging out with the disenchanted. And so this is the main purpose of this program today, is to understand how we've been disinherited. What words would you use for that?
You said it aptly. That's correct.
Disenchanted?
Disenchanted, disinherited.
From a psychological point of view.
Debauched. That's even stronger.
Castrated.
Indeed. Indeed.
Defiled.
And defiled.
And it's amazing how we've survived.
And reduced.
And look what's happening to our kids here in year 2000.
That's where we left off. Yes, I'm not pleased with what I'm seeing. As a matter of fact, speaking about that, and I was just scolding by my students last week, I was saying that I'm extremely disturbed with the fact that all of them seem to have a get-over mentality. If I ask for 3 pages of typed work, they want to do a page and a half, and then it's, pardon the expression, half-assed at that. And I'm real displeased. In other words, they want to give me just enough to get over. With that kind of attitude, in my mind, is a C or a D. Right. And then they want to demand A's from you just for warming a seat.
It's just still, if you're intelligent and you articulate your words, you're being too white in our society today?
It's even more basic than that. Basically, just a get over mentality, rather than having a more humble attitude, such as, well, what is the standard? How can I come up to it? And I told them, even the so-called A's that I may give now, I said it's nothing compared to a decade ago. And if you saw the papers that I got to read, or was privy to read, and compare them with yours, you would be embarrassed to even ask. It's just not there. There's no development. There's nothing of substance on paper. That's what is happening with our people. That's a monitor for me.
What percentage of the kids do you feel like this?
All of them. Okay. It's pervasive. It's very pervasive. And then they had the nerve to tell me.
We're talking about black children.
Black and Latino. Then they had the nerve to say, you're out of step, and times have changed. No, quality lasts forever. If you write something magnificent, it could stand 500 years. The quality is just not there, nor do they care. I do care. I do care.
So you're one of the few teachers that care about the quality of work?
It's got to be. It's just basically the word is mediocre.
Why? Why do you care so much?
Because I want them all to be like me. That's why.
Okay.
I want them to be able to really make their way through this life and do all right by themselves. Why am I like that? Because I want them to have more than I ever had. Okay. But they will not get there with mediocrity. They will not get there.
So you're really a parent and a teacher. Are they your children?
Yes, you could say so. Yes. Yes, it's true. I'm trying not to disinherit them. Speaking of disinheritance.
So you really take it personal then, don't you?
Yes, because I don't like mediocrity, it could be so much more, And plus, I'm jealous of other professors. I don't care about other professors. I want my work first, and I want it to be together.
Okay.
And I tell them so.
Well, you don't feel this is self-centered.
No, it's about quality. It's about quality. That's where it's at.
What in your past has driven you to this? Teaching is such a difficult job,
it's fun.
Especially to.
Oh, it's not hard. Oh no, don't be fooled. It's fun. I wouldn't do it if it weren't fun. It's fun. It's enjoyable.
But you seem stressed out about it?
I can be when I get work that's not up to standard, not up to par. Okay. And then they have the nerve to complain. I was at one school that should remain nameless just for a minute, and the students, their greatest complaint was that I had the nerve to ask them to type their papers. This is the level that they're on. I said, you got to be kidding. I said, you've got to be kidding. This is college, not high school. Mm-hmm. So it's this. You're going to go out in the real world and get a job and you can't even type, or you can't even write standard sentences. No, so I have issues. So put it that way. It's all about quality.
Gets a little bit. I know we're getting away from the Kybalion, but we'll get back to this.
Yes, of course.
I bet there was a point in here that if you want to finish it about polarity.
Polarity, yes.
Now you said the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Every truth is but a half-truth. All paradox can be maybe reconciled.
I want to deal with the first part, the polarity, which is true, which nothing can be done about it per se, but it has wreaked more havoc with us in terms of this business of light and dark, and as in extremes such as lynchings and what do they call it, racial profiling. I mean, that's duality right there. It has wreaked more havoc with us than a little bit, and I am truly at a loss as to say how to get out of it. And even if you went the more neutral route of just keep your center and smile, and that is not getting it.
How do they explain it in the Kybalion to solve your polarity?
To deal with polarity basically is to create your own world as much as possible. That's what it says in the rear of the Kybalion. To basically create your own mental world as much as possible, so that you now become the teacher rather than the other way around and becoming, as they say, a pawn of other people.
Well, it's like...
just the same, I'm saying to you, easier said than done.
Well, if you understand the difference, the polarity is like love and hate.
Yes.
The reverse of your own case and that of others.
Yes.
And if you therefore realize that the possibilities of this being accomplished by the use of the will.
Yes, of course.
It takes willpower.
Yes.
To polarize or stop the swing
Stop
of
the swing,
pendulum.
and then you can rise above it, so it says.
Exactly. So this is what we have to teach our kids. It's by your willpower, because the universe is mental. It's by your will and by your thoughts and your energies that you change this polarity. It's understanding the principles and being able to control the principle. It's called mental transmutation.
Yes, of course.
Transferring a positive thought to a negative thought into a positive thought. That old mental transference.
But when you're in the situation itself,
that's when you have to understand it the most.
Yes.
Changing that hate
True.
into love. And we go through this all the time.
Yes, but
that's the Jesus that's coming inside you, that Christ-like feeling.
I know, but the onus is always on us. You know, as Gilchrist lead says,
on
so
you,
we are,
on me,
we are
each individual.
We are the civilizers of this American culture in particular.
If you understand this principle,
yes,
you understand. Now I've got the same problem as every other human being. I get mad, I get angry, I get hateful, and I say, and I don't like the person that comes out. That devil in me can come out there. But if I understand the idea of polarity, I have to take that hate and look in the mirror and say, God loves you. I have to love in order to get the God. The God in me loves the God in you.
As they're whipping our heads. That, again, I understand what you're saying. Really, I do. I'm just saying it's been a very rough. It's been a very rough spiritual whatever lesson for us. And it's rough when you're in it, such as the civil rights marches and things. And when you're in it, it's.
Martin Luther King could do it, but Malcolm couldn't.
Not everyone can.
I couldn't do it at that time.
You can now,
huh? I'm trying hard. And my pastor helps me. My pastor helps me. He really helps me.
I do it in the style that I know best. Basically, how I do it is simply to draw a line and inform the person of what I will and will not tolerate. I'm more arrogant about mine. I'll put it that way.
Well,
that's how I deal with it.
But it has to be a thought process where you open up your mind to that creation. You have to transmute that whole thought process, that whole mental creation of yours from hate to love. And if you vibrate that love energy, no one can touch you. You create an armor of God, so to speak, and you project this love energy, and nobody can touch you.
Most of the time
Try it, you like it.
Most of the time it works. Most of the time.
Well, anybody that knew me, they'd probably cracking up on me and say, well, you do it very well, Winston. Well, I try. That's like you say, that's one of our most difficult things to do.
Yes, it is.
Love thy enemy and be Christ-like.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Now, the principle of rhythm. We as black folks should understand that very well. But it's not quite the rhythm that we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Now, the explanation for rhythm is everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall.
Yes.
The pendulum swing, which we're talking about, manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left.
Yes.
Rhythm compensates. Now here's where that middle of the road takes. Now we know our mood swings. When the full moon comes, we're way up there, and that hate energy is easily touched, and we're so sensitive, and the vibrations are going, and we're just zapping ourselves, and our mental thoughts are doing what to us?
We are water beings, as I call us.
Yeah.
Water.
Baptism.
A lot of it is chemistry.
Of course it is.
Chemistry.
How does that relate to your psychological history, or what you've learned in psychology? All those principles. We only got a few more. That's the fifth one. Rhythm. The rhythm of your
such as in depression.
Your cycle.
Such as depression.
Your cycle. Your 30-month cycle.
True.
We all go through the 30-month cycle.
True.
And the people don't understand the full moon and what the full moon does to the body.
Yes.
The body is 2/3 water.
Even more than that, yes.
It was 2/3?
More than that.
70%?
More. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the moon has to affect the individual human. Since it can move oceans
That's true.
and tides, I'm
Yes.
sure it can move the water in your body.
That's true.
So your mood swings are determined by the tidal flow of the inside of you.
I used to watch my father. He used to, once a month, like clockwork, when I came home from high school, I knew that I wasn't supposed to talk to him. He was actually sitting in his chair, watching television, but if you know what I mean, watch in quotes. Not really. Thinking, just thinking. And I knew that I was just supposed to leave him alone. And I did. And then the very next day, it would only last one day. And then the very next day, he was fine. He was very pensive and just thoughtful. And one day a month like clockwork. I'll never forget it.
Do you have those cycles? I mean, I'm sure you do.
Not to the extent that I used to. I'm able to control more. And with age, and
With age.
with
Okay.
age,
Wisdom.
I'm able to, yes, it's effortless. I don't, do a sharp, and depression as I knew it is almost unknown. So I'm on another, either I'm on another level or on another phase of my life.
Okay.
It's almost, and I like it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very different. Yes.
So this you have to teach. We have to teach all people this. Very interesting. The next principle is the sixth principle, which is the principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to the law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law.
Also known as karma.
Exactly.
And things that we don't know anything about
Exactly.
that may be following us. It's possible.
So that coincidence is nothing but God's plan?
I'm smiling because actually I met someone whom I enjoy very, very much. Very much. And I guess you could say it's I think it was a plan. The more I think about it, a plan.
The more you accept it, I think the easier life
Oh, I'm very good with it. Very good with it.
gets. Okay.
Yes.
So that's it. All right, let's go to the last one. Then we can go on to, this is the best one. The principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle. Gender manifests on all planes. Now that we all know. Now God is dual.
Except that the feminine has been almost obliterated in Western culture.
Okay.
I mean, and I do have something very special to say about that last point. As I don't know, I'm sure you probably know who this is. There's a local artist who is beloved by many people who does murals on buildings, Mr. Floyd Sapp. Mr. Floyd Sapp is responsible for introducing me to the Bible, but the Douay version, in which
who?
It's called the Douay version.
Douay.
I think it's
I've never
D-O-U-A-Y, Douay, the Latin Vulcan translation, not the King James, the Douay. The King James has been butchered, frankly. Anyway,
Yeah, look who wrote it.
yeah, there's a book in there called the Book of Wisdom. The Book of Wisdom is all about the feminine. It's all about the feminine. As a matter of fact, I wrote about Floyd Sapp in this piece in my memoirs. I think it's a very special gift that he gave to me. And basically it's about that it even says, how do they put it, that even the vapor, which is the power of God, is the feminine. It is a mind blower, and that's why it was excised. They don't want people to even think such a thing. It's awesome. And the fact, and it says that, well, you don't have to search for her. Actually, she's sitting outside the door. She's waiting. If you're looking for her, she'll meet you halfway. And it says she's the most beautiful of all creatures, and that everyone should seek her for a wife. That's what it says. Because her name is Wisdom. That's what it says. It's awesome. But the wisdom is a she, and it is feminine. And that's what's really missing. It doesn't mean that the masculine has no place and that it's put to the side. It doesn't mean that. It just means that the feminine is quite powerful. But there's been like a conspiracy to really to to obliterate that, basically.
Well, I think God's...
As you know.
Well,
it's quite
what's
a
wrong with-
problem. But the feminine is really quite remarkable. It's quite
we all have that male and that
Yes,
female
it's true.
in us.
It's true. It's
We
called
all recognize that.
It's called
I recognize the
integration.
different sides of my body are male and female. I know the left side is more feminine
Left.
than the right side.
Uh-huh.
You know, it can be just as hard. I mean, or like in boxing, I mean, the left side is a sting, and this is a knockout. This side always took care of me. This has most of the wounds.
Yes.
I got scars all over it, and it takes you too busy taking care of this side. So I can see it in my own self, my own personal experience, as we are talking about the Winston Gilchrist experience.
Indeed. Yes.
So it's, you know, all these principles in this book. I've been living with this book for almost 30 years now, and I always relate back to it when I get out of sync.
Out of sync. Yes.
No, it's very important, and it does say in the ending that you never waste knowledge, that you should be able to share this, even though a hermetic means sealed, secret.
It also says in the front of the Kybalion, it says not to give it away either, especially to those who are not ready.
Pearls to the swine.
Yes.
Well,
indeed.
hopefully I'm not throwing pearls to the swines, and hopefully my audience is intelligent enough to pay attention. When I bring good thoughts to you, you see in the past that we do good things here. So this is another one of the clues to life, to the Winston Gilchrist experience, the Kybalion. Take heed. A word to the wise is sufficient. It says also in the Kybalion, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Indeed.
Amen, my brothers. Pay attention. Give you the news of the new millennium, year 2000. God be with you. Now, let's just take a little further about philosophy and my guest here today. With the few minutes that we have left, I'd just like to give a little biography of yourself. Tell us how you got started in all this philosophy, and give us, you're a regular home girl, and just, you know,
Oh God.
show the human side of yourself.
Oh, where shall I start? Oh, a good bio. How do I get? I've always been bookish in terms of philosophy. As a matter of fact, in the old days, I used to get 25 cents a week for an allowance, and the last little 25 cents would be spent on some books.
Didn't you go out and party like the rest of us?
No, I was something of an introvert. To be honest with you, it's only coming to the East Coast that has forced me to be extroverted. But the real secret is that I'm an introvert. But anyway, that's
a love
where it
of
began.
knowledge is great.
Oh, it's true. But but my house is a wreck because I am such a bookworm. I have books all over the house, papers all over the house. I was horrible. It being, as they say, intellectual and philosophical. You know, I have so many books. It's horrendous.
But your search is to solve the black problem?
Yes.
Because that's your problem.
Yes, it's our collective problem.
Our
This is true.
Okay.
This is true. Always looking for answers, of course, ultimately. And I begin to think that I will begin to see some closure, for instance, on a more global scale with us during my lifetime. There was a time, for instance, when I could not foresee us getting reparations of any kind. I think I've changed my mind. I do now believe that I will live to see it. It shows how things have moved and progressed. You know, like for instance, the Berlin Wall came down. The Korean Wall, I think, is going to come down, or if it hasn't already. Things can happen in a revolutionary way overnight. So I'm beginning to change my mind about certain things. But the struggle is just so arduous en route to these different battlefiels. It's just arduous, and things that you think will have some closure, and that's the end of it. Oh goodness! I mean, it's on and on and on because of this duality. You always have somebody nipping at your heels, even if you've solved the problem. They're always nipping at your heels.
That's why you have to stay on an even keel.
It's true.
It's always going to be at you.
It's true. But in terms of philosophy, I've studied, of course, obviously Western philosophy, East Indian philosophy, Chinese philosophy.
Want to talk about Sai Baba a little bit?
Not really. Sai Baba. Just that people should beware. This is person named Sai Baba, who I guess 20 years ago was a big deal. I know probably here in New York.
The 70s.
Because he had an afro and he looked like us and so on and so forth.
He looked like a brother.
This
Well, he
looked
was
like
a brother. Yeah. Well, he was raising people from the dead, healing the blind.
Supposedly, but anyhow.
Did he? It's not true?
I doubt it. In
Were
any
you
case,
anywhere around?
in any case.
Were you in that environment?
Hanging out, but not with Sai Baba. But anyway.
So you were in India?
No, I was not. It's not in India. No, I was here. I was studying actually at the California Institute of Asian Studies.
Okay.
At one time, that's where I was, getting real steeped in things, looking for answers. Because I was, you have to understand, I was in my 20s, and of course I was looking for answers. A lot of it has been answered, and actually, I can tell it to you in one sentence. Where, as per the Kybalion, where a lot of people got their philosophy, meaning, and it even says as much, what Chaldea, Assyria, China, Japan, India, they came to Egypt and took a nip off of it and thought they had the whole piece and then went away. And then regurgitated it into a so-called religion and fed it now 1,000,000 years later, 1,000 years later to us. And some of these spiritual practices are less than good. In fact, a lot of them are quite unsavory. So there's a piece, and it's been debased, basically. That's really what I discovered.
The pearls went to the swines.
Yes, and then they altered it, and that's not really what it was about.
Well, how do we come back to purify all this? Bring it back to the spiritual nature that needs to be, the God consciousness that needs to cleanse us all.
Make trips, I'm sure. Make pilgrimages to Africa. As you know, as our wonderful friend Omar Ahmed says, we must go to Egypt if just once, just to behold these incredible statues of ourselves. Awesome.
Oh, I'm dying to see the pyramids.
Awesome. Down to the last detail of the body. I mean, awesome.
Exactly.
That's what the world came to borrow, so to speak. So it was a type of wholesale thievery, basically.
Well, one of the biggest crimes, I mean, birth of a nation, then there was the Ten Commandments.
Yes. Yes.
And there was another birth of a nation, and the psychological affected people to think that the pyramids were built out of mud and straw. There's no bricks on the pyramids. The pyramids are 2.5-ton slabs of limestone.
Yes.
You don't make limestones from mud, from straw. So all these delusions that they've put us through, and we actually believe half of them.
Yes, that we're nothing. We are the originators and creators. We are the originals.
Now, how did they bamboozle us like that?
Well, we know different now. How does it go now? There's a woman at Yale University. I was telling my students this at Yale University. She says there are 27 genetic divisions within our race, approximately. And I think she said the Asians have 2, and I don't know about the rest, but the point is the more genetic divisions, the older you are. We are literally older than the hills, you know. So that means obviously we're the fathers and the mothers of everyone else. Those are our children who are kicking our behinds. That's
have you been here before?
Pardon me?
Have you been here before?
Have I been
here? On this plane before?
Oh, you mean as in reincarnation?
Yeah. You believe in that, don't you?
I'm sure that I do. I believe that energy just keeps on going, as in the principle of emotion.
Right.
It just keeps traveling. Now, where to, I cannot say.
Well, I believe in the cosmic genetic link.
Yes.
I'm sure we're.
Yes.
I can feel my ancient Egyptian ancestors speaking through the tube so I'm going to vibrate out there for all you to stay tuned and tune in next week to the Winston Gilchrist Experience. It's been fun. It's always a joy to pass on information. That's all we're doing. We try to bring you the truth every week and with a charming guest every week.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
It's been a joy.
Sure. Thank you.
And see you next week. Don't forget to tune in, those of you that are on the net, www.mnn.org. You can see us on the internet, so the entire planet can get the vibrations. God bless. Thank you. That was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Huh?
Yeah.
Enjoy that one?
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I told you I'd make it fun. I told you I'd make it fun.
cigarette that bears a lipstick's traces, an airline ticket to romantic places, and still my heart has wings. These foolish things remind me of you. A tinkling piano in the next apartment, those stumbling words that told you what my heart meant. A fairground painted swings, these foolish things remind me of you. You came, you saw, you conquered me when you did that to me. I knew somehow it had to be the winds of March that made my heart a dancer, a telephone that rings and